Hi. In section 22 of Counsels and Maxims, Schopenhauer discusses how similarity and difference of character affects our social habits. At the end of the section, he says a bit about mood and the way that memory affects our interaction with people and events. Here's what he writes. Let's see. It is astonishing how easily and how quickly similarity or difference of mind and disposition makes itself felt between one man and another as soon as they begin to talk. Every little trifle shows it. When two people of totally different natures are conversing, almost everything said by the one will, in a greater or less degree, displease the other, and in many cases produce positive annoyance, even though the conversation turn upon the most out-of-the-way subject, or one in which neither of the parties has any real interest. People of similar nature, on the other hand, immediately come to a kind of general agreement, and if they are cast very much in the same mold, complete harmony, or even unison, will flow from their intercourse. This explains two circumstances. First of all, it shows why it is that common, ordinary people are so sociable and find good company wherever they go. Ah, those good, dear, brave people. It is just the contrary with those who are not of the common run, and the less they are so, the more unsociable they become, so that if, in their isolation, they chance to come across someone in whose nature they can find even a single sympathetic chord, be it ever so minute, they show extraordinary pleasure in his society. For one man can be to another only so much as the other is to him. Great minds are like eagles and build their nests in some lofty solitude. I think it's a brilliant bit of observation from Schopenhauer, with himself perhaps in mind, why it is that common people can be so friendly and so easily sociable, and why it is that the exceptional people, perhaps the German philosophers, find it very difficult to be friendly, to find people with whom they can have a real fellow feeling, and and for that reason they are so taciturn and unsocial, antisocial. So Schopenhauer continues. Secondly, we are enabled to understand how it is that people of like disposition so quickly get on with one another, as though they were drawn together by magnetic force, kindred souls greeting each other from afar. Of course, the most frequent opportunity of observing this is afforded by people of vulgar tastes and inferior intellect, but only because their name is legion, while those who are better off in this respect and of a rarer nature are not often to be met with. They are called rare because you seldom find them. Take the case of a large number of people who have formed themselves into a league for the purpose of carrying out some practical object. If there be two rascals among them, they will recognize each other as rapidly as if they bore a similar badge, and will at once conspire for some misfeasance or treachery. In the same way, if you can imagine, per is impossible, a large company of very intelligent and clever people, amongst whom there are only two blockheads, these two will be sure to be drawn together by a feeling of sympathy, and each of them will very soon secretly rejoice at having found at least one intelligent person in the whole company. It is really quite curious to see how two such men, especially if they are morally and intellectually of an inferior type, will recognize each other at first sight, with what zeal they will strive to become intimate, how affably and cheerily they will run to greet each other just as though they were old friends. It is also striking that one is tempted to embrace the Buddhist doctrine of metempsychosis and presume that they were on familiar terms in some former state of existence. Here again we'll see perhaps that the vulgar, the common, the low quality have a certain kind of advantage over the exceptional, the brilliant, and the morally superior. simply in terms of being more people whom they might recognize and associate with. Schopenhauer continues. Still, in spite of all this general agreement, men are kept apart who might come together, or in some cases, a passing discord springs up between them. This is due to diversity of mood. You will hardly ever see two people exactly in the same frame of mind, for that is something which varies with their condition of life, their occupation, surroundings, health, the train of thought they are in at the moment, and so on. These differences give rise to a discord between persons of the most harmonious disposition. Since moods can separate people who are by mind and disposition inclined to be sympathetic. To correct the balance properly, so as to remove the disturbance, to introduce, as it were, a uniform temperature, is a work demanding a very high degree of culture. The extent to which uniformity of mood is productive of good fellowship may be measured by its effects upon a large company. When, for instance, a great many people are gathered together and presented with some objective interest which works upon all alike and influences them in a similar way, no matter what it may be, a common danger or hope, some great news, a spectacle, a play, a piece of music, or anything of that kind, you will find them roused to a mutual expression of thought and a display of sincere interest. There will be a general feeling of pleasure amongst them, for that which attracts their attention produces a unity of mood by overpowering all private and personal interests. People who are old enough might remember, of course, the effect that the 9/11 attacks had upon Americans and the general sympathy it obtained for several days afterwards. I think that's the kind of thing Schopenhauer is speaking of here. He continues. And in default of some objective interest of the kind I have mentioned, recourse is usually had to something subjective. A bottle of wine is not an uncommon means of introducing a mutual feeling of fellowship, and even tea and coffee are used for a like end. The discord which so easily finds its way into all society, as an effect of the different moods in which people happen to be at the moment, also in part explains why it is that memory always idealizes, and sometimes almost transfigures the attitude we have taken up at any period of the past, a change due to our inability to remember all the fleeting influences which disturbed us on any given occasion. Memory is in this respect like the lens of a camera obscura. It contracts everything within its range, and so produces a much finer picture than the actual landscape affords. And in the case of a man, absence always goes some way towards securing this advantageous light. For though the idealizing tendency of the memory requires time to complete its work, it begins it at once. Hence, it is a prudent thing to see your friends and acquaintances only at considerable intervals of time, and on meeting them again, you will observe that memory has been at work. That's the end of the section. An interesting, again, kind of Schopenhauerian acerbic observation that our memory aids in our friendships by by helping us to forget the details that annoy us. So we're best advised to see our friends only occasionally. When we see them again, he suggests, we will be annoyed by all those little details that the camera obscura of memory omitted from our direct attention during the interval. So there's Schopenhauer's discussion of mood and temperament and how it affects our social relations. We'll look at section 23 next. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye.